On October 19, 2014, a scene straight out of a horror novel was discovered by local residents at an abandoned factory about 500 meters from the bridge, marking the beginning of a mysterious case. On that day, a local resident was on their way to work as usual, riding their bicycle. However, for some unknown reason, they had an upset stomach that morning. Unable to hold it any longer, they turned into some small roads leading to the abandoned factory in search of a secluded place to relieve themselves. Since the factory had been out of operation for years, the surrounding area was desolate, overgrown with wild vegetation, and eerily silent. Normally, no one would come here. Yet, on this fateful day, this resident happened to come here and witnessed something they would never want to see again in their lifetime. As they approached the wall of the abandoned factory, they saw the body of a woman lying beneath it in a disturbingly unnatural posture. Any thought of relieving themselves was immediately forgotten, so was the stomachache. The only thing they could do at that moment was turn their bike around and ride straight to the police station to report the discovery. When the Jiao County Police arrived at the scene, the sight was just as horrifying as the witness had described. The body was in a gruesome state, suggesting that the victim had been dead for several days and was already in the process of decomposition. The posture was twisted, the clothes were stained with blood, and her sandals had fallen off. A rope was still tied tightly around her neck, strongly indicating that strangulation was the cause of death. Even more chilling was that a wooden stake had been driven deep into her left eye. Another similar stake had been inserted into the victim's lower body, near the bottom of the wall. Approximately 30 centimeters from the ground, investigators found small splatters of blood. This suggested that when the perpetrator forcefully drove the wooden stake into the victim's eye, blood had spurted onto the wall. Given this evidence, it was highly likely that this location was the primary crime scene where the murder took place rather than just a body disposal site. Upon further investigation, police discovered a mobile phone inside the victim's body, though it was out of battery and slightly damaged. Some small change was also found in her pockets. Nearby, there was an empty liquor bottle, a piece of plastic tarp, and half a blood-stained brick. Between the body and the wall, they found a small, old notebook. Who was this victim? Why was she murdered? Did she come to this place alone before being attacked? Or was she brought here by force? Many questions needed answers from forensic experts and investigators. Through the autopsy, forensic specialists determined that the victim was a woman between 30 and 35 years old, approximately 1.58 meters tall, with a slender physique. She had previously given birth. The cause of death was confirmed as mechanical asphyxiation. She had been strangled with the rope that was still around her neck. However, there were no defensive wounds on her body, which was unusual. Typically, even a physically weaker victim would struggle fiercely when fighting for their life. The lack of defensive wounds suggested that she might have been incapacitated before the strangulation. A closer examination of the back of her head revealed an injury consistent with the bloodstains found on the brick at the scene. This indicated that the perpetrator had likely struck the victim with the brick first, knocking her unconscious, before proceeding to strangle her with the rope. The two wooden stakes used in the gruesome act had been intentionally prepared. When removed, it was evident that their tips had been sharpened. Upon analysis, investigators identified the stakes as being made of peach wood. This led them to a critical theory. The perpetrator was likely highly superstitious. But why did the choice of peach wood indicate a superstitious belief? In Chinese culture, dating back to ancient times, peach wood has been regarded as a material with supernatural properties, often used to ward off evil spirits. It has long played a significant role in Chinese folk beliefs and traditions. New Year's couplets in China were traditionally written on peach wood boards, which were believed to act as protective talismans. These talismans, known as peach charms, were thought to drive away malevolent forces. During the Han Dynasty, official seals were often carved from peach wood and hung on doors as Dao seals, serving the same protective function. Returning to the case, the killer used peachwood stakes to impale the victim. Likely as part of a superstitious ritual, perhaps they believed that by doing so, the victim's spirit would be unable to seek revenge, as the peach wood would suppress it. Following this lead, the police reviewed missing person reports and quickly found a case that matched the victim's description. A man named Chen Jia, 40 years old, had reported his wife missing several days earlier. On that day, Chen Jia told the police that his wife, Tang Rong, who worked at a local paper factory, had gone missing on the night of October 9th. That evening, after having dinner with the family around 8 p.m., Tang Rong mentioned that she was going to a neighboring village to discuss a matchmaking arrangement. Matchmaking was her side job. Families looking to arrange marriages would provide matchmakers like Tang Rong with information about their children. If she found a compatible match in terms of age and background, she would facilitate introductions, and if the match was successful, the matchmaker would receive a small, thank you, fee. It might sound like an ancient practice from the days of archery and sword fighting. But matchmaking is still very much alive in modern China. In fact, a university in Beijing even offers an academic program dedicated to matchmaking services. Back to the story. After leaving home that night, Tang Rong never returned. Her husband and both sides of the family searched for her for 3 days before finally reporting her missing to the police. Authorities then escorted the family to the morgue, where they confirmed that the murdered woman was indeed Tang Rong. Through further investigation, police learned that Tang Rong was 31 years old and had been married to Chen Jia for 10 years. The couple had 3 children, 2 boys and 1 girl. The eldest was 9, the middle child was 7, and the youngest was just a toddler. Tang Rong worked at a local paper factory and supplemented her income with matchmaking. By all accounts, she had good relationships with her relatives and neighbors, with no known conflicts. At the crime scene, investigators found various items, but upon closer examination, some details raised perplexing questions. First, according to her husband, the night of her disappearance was the 16th day of the lunar calendar. Their family had a long-standing tradition of eating vegetarian meals on the 1st and 15th days of the lunar month. However, the autopsy revealed undigested poultry meat, likely duck, in Tang Rong's stomach. This suggested that after eating dinner with her family, she had later consumed meat, breaking their usual tradition. Second, a liquor bottle was found at the scene, and further investigation revealed that Tang Rong had purchased it from a convenience store located between her home and the crime scene. Police visited the store and confirmed this information. This detail was suspicious. In that rural area, by 8 p.m., it was already pitch dark, with streetlights being sparse. Tang Rong had told her family she was going to discuss a matchmaking arrangement, which was a legitimate work-related reason to be out. She had only taken her mobile phone with her, carrying nothing else. However, when police checked with residents of the neighboring village, they found no evidence of any planned matchmaking meetings involving Tang Rong. No families had requested her services, nor were there any upcoming weddings or engagements she was supposed to facilitate. This strongly suggested that Tang Rong had lied about her reason for going out. Furthermore, logically speaking, it was highly improbable that a woman who had just finished dinner with her family would suddenly buy a bottle of liquor, some meat, and then go alone to an abandoned factory to drink by herself, only to be murdered there. All signs pointed to one conclusion. Tang Rong had gone to the crime scene to meet someone, most likely a lover or at least someone she was close to. If this person wasn't the murderer, then they were undoubtedly connected to the crime. The police needed to verify and clarify Tang Rong's relationships with her friends and colleagues. However, after thoroughly investigating her contacts, including those who frequently communicated with her via phone calls and messages, especially calls made on the day she went missing, the police found no suspicious conversations. There were no unusually long calls that might indicate an affair. When the police visited the paper factory where Tang Rong worked, they uncovered another surprising detail. The head of the HR department provided them with Tang Rong's leave request form. The reason stated was personal matters. The request was written and signed on October 9, with leave starting from October 10. That meant she submitted her leave request in the morning, left home at night, and was murdered. Did she plan this in advance? If so, what was her intention? Could she have been planning to elope with a lover, only for it to turn into a one-way trip to death? This theory seemed illogical as well. If she intended to run away, why did she only take a small amount of cash with her? Normally, someone planning to flee would prepare financially and take as much as possible. Then there was the bedsheet found at the scene. It seemed to have been used as a mat to sit on. But it didn't belong to the victim's family, meaning it must have been brought by someone else. Even more puzzling was a notebook found at the crime scene. It was unclear whether the killer had accidentally dropped it or deliberately left it there. Examining the contents of the notebook, the police discovered it was an old, coverless book with oil stains. The handwriting was large and untidy, as if written by someone with little education. The first part of the notebook contained entries about the life of an oil rig worker. The second half, however, described a romantic relationship. The writer, referring to himself as Lao He, expressed deep affection for a woman called Xiao Chong. Although the name Tang Rong was never explicitly mentioned, the descriptions made it easy to infer that she could be Xiao Chong. Some important excerpts included, Xiao Chong, from the first time I met you, I knew I belonged to you. You work at a paper factory and earn much more than me. I'm just an oil worker, covered in dirt all day, yet you never looked down on me. I'm so grateful to you. During lunch break, Wang and Li told me I should end this relationship because it would lead nowhere. But how could Lao He ever leave Xiao Chong? Lao He would follow Xiao Chong to the ends of the earth. Was Xiao Chong actually Tang Rong? And was Lao He her secret lover? Who was this man? The notebook suggested that the writer worked at an oil field nearby. It also mentioned two people named Wang and Li. Unlike the nicknames, Lao He and Xiao Chong, Wang and Li seemed to be real names, since the notebook was found at the crime scene and contained relevant information. The police followed protocol and investigated. They visited all 3 oil fields in the district, but no one went by the name Lao He, nor was there anyone named Wang or Li. Expanding the search to neighboring areas still yielded no results. Some oil fields had a Wang but no Li, others had a Li but no Wang. Even when both names appeared at the same site, further investigations ruled them out as suspects. After extensive efforts, the case returned to square one with no breakthroughs. The police, caught up in the notebook's details, had overlooked a key person, Tang Rong's husband, Chen Jia. From a motive standpoint, it was entirely possible that Chen Jia had discovered his wife's affair and plotted revenge. He could have followed her that night, waited for her lover to leave, and then killed her. He then pretended to search for her for 3 days before reporting her missing. Knowing exactly where to avoid looking, he thought no one would find out, but in the end, a random passerby uncovered the crime scene. Though this was just a theory, some details seemed suspicious. Why did he wait 3 days before reporting her missing? Normally, a family would report a missing loved one within a day. Furthermore, his alibi for the night of the murder relied solely on his 3 young children. The eldest was only 9, making it easy for him to manipulate them into saying he was home all night. This alibi was weak and unreliable. Another possibility arose. What if Tang Rong never had an affair? What if her husband had fabricated the entire story to mislead the investigation? If true, that would make him a criminal mastermind. If Chen Jia forged the notebook to create a fake affair and divert suspicion, then his handwriting should match the handwriting in the notebook. The police immediately sent both the notebook and Chen Jia's written statement for handwriting analysis. Experts discovered that the notebook entries were written with the non-dominant hand, specifically the left hand. The writer had intentionally used their weaker hand to make the handwriting appear different and more unrefined. Furthermore, although the entries claimed to span several years, all were written using the same type of pen. The ink analysis showed that the writing was only a few months old, proving it was fabricated. If handwriting written with the left hand is compared to handwriting written with the right hand, can it be determined whether they belong to the same person? In forensic handwriting analysis, experts examine distinctive characteristics of handwriting. Every individual has unique writing habits, differences in pressure, slant, spacing, punctuation, and strokes. Even when writing with the non-dominant hand, these unique features often remain. A person's subconscious retains their writing style, so even if they switch hands, their writing will still exhibit certain identifiable traits. While an ordinary person might not notice these details, experts and specialized forensic equipment can detect them. After analyzing and comparing the handwriting in the diary found at the crime scene with Chen Jia's handwriting, forensic experts concluded that the handwriting did not belong to him. This meant that Chen Jia was not the author of the diary. This led to two key conclusions. 1. There was insufficient evidence to consider Chen Jia a suspect. 2. The reason Chen Jia waited 3 days before reporting his wife missing was uncovered. It was found that Chen Jia and his family harbored a deep mistrust of law enforcement. They believed the authorities were incompetent and unhelpful, so they preferred to handle matters on their own. However, after 3 days with no success, and under pressure from Tang Rong's family, he was forced to report the case. This reinforced the conclusion that he did not kill his wife. At this point, the case once again reached a dead end. The investigators had been close to the truth, but the investigation had stalled. Were there any overlooked details? The diary, written with the left hand, seemed to point to someone from the nearby oil extraction site. However, the investigation had failed to identify such a person, indicating that it was likely a deliberate attempt to mislead the police. There were still unanswered questions. If Tang Rong had a lover, why were there no phone calls or messages to and from him? Lovers, even in secret relationships, usually find ways to call or text frequently. Even if they don't talk much, they at least call to arrange meeting times and locations. Could the answer be that Tang Rong saw this person every day and communicated directly, eliminating the need for calls? If so, the lover must have been someone close to her, someone she interacted with regularly. Another lingering question was, why did she submit a leave request on the exact day of the crime? Was it purely coincidence? If she planned to run away with a lover, why did she carry only a small amount of money and even wear slippers? Piecing these thoughts together, investigators began considering a new possibility. What if the leave request was also fabricated? Could it have been created to divert suspicion away from someone at the paper factory and prevent a thorough investigation of her workplace? With this realization, the police returned to Tang Rong's workplace and met with the administrative manager to request the original leave request form. Previously, they had only been given a photocopy. During the meeting, they also asked whether Tang Rong had submitted the request in person or through someone else. The manager confirmed that she had handed it in herself. The original form was sent for handwriting analysis, despite the document being a standard printed form with only a few handwritten sections. Forensic experts determined the following. 1. The handwriting and signature, while imitated well, did not belong to Tang Rong. 2. The handwriting on the leave request matched the handwriting in the diary. One was written with the right hand, the other with the left, but both were written by the same person. Since the request form had been submitted directly to the manager, yet Tang Rong was not the author. Who was the most suspicious person now? The administrative manager himself, Lu Yang. Lu Yang, 54 years old, was a former police officer who had left the force 15 years ago to work at the paper factory. The police did not act immediately to avoid alerting him. Instead, they collected more handwriting samples from Lu Yang for comparison. Meanwhile, Investigators examine his movements on the night of the crime using surveillance footage from the factory entrance. At 7:41 p.m. on the night of the murder, Lu Yang was seen riding a bicycle in the direction of the abandoned factory, where the crime had taken place. Another clue surfaced. Earlier, a forensic report had revealed that the victim had poultry meat in her stomach. But she had only purchased alcohol that night. Who bought the meat? Most likely, the person who was with her. It is highly likely that the person accompanying the victim was the one who made the purchase. The police monitored the route from the paper factory to the abandoned factory and inquired along the way at various shops. They eventually found a small convenience store where the shopkeeper confirmed that, on the night of the incident, a middle-aged man with salt and pepper hair riding a bicycle had purchased pre-prepared duck wings and feet. Unfortunately, the shopkeeper could not recall the man's face clearly. However, the handwriting analysis team had made a breakthrough. The left-handed writing in the diary, the right-handed writing on Tang Rong's leave request, and the handwriting of Lu Yang all belonged to the same person. At this point, there was no room for speculation. An arrest warrant for Lu Yang was issued. During the interrogation, Lu Yang initially denied everything, but faced with irrefutable evidence, he had no choice but to confess. He was the murderer. Lu Yang told the police that his relationship with Tang Rong had changed 3 years prior. No longer just a superior and subordinate, they had developed a romantic affair, despite both being married with children. Initially, they were just colleagues, but over time, Tang Rong confided in Lu Yang about her unhappy marriage. She complained that her husband was incompetent, uneducated, and could only do menial jobs, while she had to bear all financial burdens. She admitted that she was attracted to intellectual, respectable men with status, men like Lu Yang, but she lamented that life had not given her the fortune to be with such a man. As time went on, their conversations deepened. Tang Rong shared all her joys and sorrows with Lu Yang, and before he realized it, he had fallen in love with this woman who was 20 years younger than him. Despite his stable family life and financial security, he could not resist his feelings for her. Due to their secret affair, Tang Rong received many workplace benefits. She was promoted from a regular worker to deputy team leader and later became the head of production line number 1. They concealed their relationship carefully, avoiding phone calls and text messages. Instead, they arranged meetings while at work and chose specific times and locations to meet in person. Since their village had only a few small hotels where they could be easily recognized, they opted for remote and abandoned places, like the abandoned factory where the murder took place. Despite the advantages she had already gained, Tang Rong wanted more. She aimed to be promoted to workshop supervisor. However, at that time, she lacked the necessary qualifications, experience, and tenure. Lu Yang promised to help but told her she had to wait for the right opportunity. Over time, Lu Yang grew tired of the affair, partly because his desires had been satisfied, and partly because Tang Rong became increasingly demanding. She constantly made requests, either for professional favors or personal benefits, which made Lu Yang feel increasingly annoyed and resentful. He attempted to end the relationship multiple times, but Tang Rong refused, even threatening to expose their affair. She warned him that if he left her, she would make everything public, which would not only ruin his reputation and career but also destroy his family. Fearing disgrace and the collapse of his family, Lu Yang reluctantly continued the relationship. However, deep inside, he had already developed murderous intent. As a former police officer, Lu Yang had a certain level of counter-investigation awareness. 4 months before committing the crime, he began meticulously planning the murder. He took an old notebook, tore out the previously written pages, and started writing with his left hand. He deliberately created entries suggesting that Tang Rong had an affair with an oil worker. To make the notebook appear old, he periodically stained it with oil, sprinkled water on it, and left it in the sun to age artificially. Being highly superstitious, Lu Yong feared that the victim's spirit would haunt him after death. To prevent this, he resorted to a traditional folk belief, using peach wood for exorcism. He prepared 2 pieces of peach wood, carved them into sharp stakes, and brought along a sacred red thread. Determined that this meeting would be their last, he planned to end everything once and for all. On the day of the murder, Lu Yong wore gloves, claiming it was due to the cold weather, but in reality, he wanted to avoid leaving fingerprints. He then picked up Tang Rom on his bicycle and took her to the abandoned factory, just as they had done many times before. This time, however, he drank very little, encouraging Tang Rom to eat and drink more. Once she was intoxicated and about to lay out a blanket for intimacy, Lu Yong suddenly attacked her from behind with a brick, knocking her unconscious. Next, he used the rope to strangle Tang Rom, applying all his strength until she showed no signs of life. Then, he took the 2 peachwood stakes he had prepared and placed them at what he believed were the 2 most important points, one over her eyes, so that the victim, once dead, would not be able to see him, and the other over what he considered the most vital part of a woman's body. After committing the murder, Lu Yong left behind the pre-prepared diary and rode his bicycle home. 2 days after the incident, the victim's husband and family members came to the factory to inquire about Tang Rom's whereabouts. To prove that both he and the factory had no involvement in her disappearance, Lu Yong forged a leave request form. This fabricated document, along with the diary, successfully misled the police investigation. It diverted their attention toward the fictional character mentioned in the diary, a supposed oil worker, causing them to overlook any suspicions related to the paper factory. However, ironically, this very misdirection eventually led the case back to its true nature. Turning the fabricated evidence into proof of Lu Yong's guilt, the court ultimately sentenced Lu Yong to the death penalty, which was carried out more than 6 months later. This case offers several profound lessons about life, relationships, and the dangers of poor decisions. Here are the lessons you should know from this case. 1. If a marriage is unhappy, we can communicate openly to find a solution. Seek support from a marriage counseling expert or divorce, not by seeking an illicit relationship that could lead to disastrous outcomes. 2. Never use blackmail to control someone. It might turn you into the victim of your own scheme. 3. Crime cannot stay hidden forever. Justice may take time, but it will prevail. What are your thoughts on this intriguing case? Leave a comment and share your opinions so everyone can know. Thank you for watching this video until the end. If you found it interesting, don't forget to hit subscribe, like and share it with your friends to support me. Turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any upcoming videos. See you in the next one. I'm Uncovering Crimes, wishing you a perfect day.